Have you ever built a simple plan, a routine that you know should have worked, but you still fell off a week or two later? It's not a discipline problem, and it's definitely not because you're lazy.
Welcome to Success Spectrum Podcast, where new entrepreneurs break free from limiting beliefs, build unshakable financial confidence, and step boldly into the life and business they were meant to create.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Success Spectrum Podcast, sponsored by Apex Affiliation. I'm your host, Kadeem McLean. Now, last week, we talked about why progress breaks down after you make a decision, and that decisions need systems to support them. Today, we're going one step further, because even when the system is simple, a lot of people still don't stay consistent. And that's where frustration can really set in. So let's talk about why consistency breaks down even when it feels like you're doing everything right. See, a lot of people can start strong, but eventually they miss a day or two. And when they miss a day or two, guilt starts to creep in. Once guilt starts to creep in, that negative self-talk that we all have activates, and it is just constantly in our minds going. Eventually, with that negative self-talk, we disengage. One of the reasons we disengage in this case is because inconsistency, it doesn't feel neutral. It feels personal. Like a personal attack on who you are and what you want to do. When consistency breaks, a lot of people don't question the system, they question themselves. They start asking themselves a bunch of questions, but that's where a lot of people go wrong about consistency. They think it's about them and they assume that they should want this more. They assume that they need to be more disciplined and that something's wrong with them. But the reality is your energy is up and down depending on the day. You might have a high energy day or you might have a low energy day. On low energy days, guess what? Your emotion often overrides your logic. And most systems, they're built for your good days. They're not built for the days you actually need the support for your low energy days. So that's where consistency fails oftentimes, is where the system does not support those low energy states. Most people blame themselves for what's actually a design problem. It's not about you most of the time. It's about the system that you have or the lack thereof. You might not even have a system. And this is where things can get a little bit uncomfortable because there's an identity conflict that's happening here. The behavior does not match your self-image. And therefore, growth requires becoming somebody new, right? Who you think you are, there's this new person, this new identity that you need to adopt or adapt to, because who you currently are does not do these things. But you want to adopt this new identity. Yeah, you have to do these things that leads you to that new identity, right? So there's kind of a conflict that happens here. And that's a lot of the times why we become or are inconsistent. Your old identity quietly resists that new standard, right? You might be saying to yourself, that's not really me. I'm just not consistent. I don't go to the gym 5 days a week. That's not what I do. That's not me. I don't drink water every day. I like my soda. I like my juice. Or I'm just not consistent with certain things, going for a walk every single day. You might even tell yourself, I always start strong, but I eventually fizzle out. These are ways, again, that negative self-talk, and eventually that leads us to disengaging. But inconsistency, a lot of us get it confused and we think it's about effort. It's not always about effort. It's that identity friction that's being created. You have your old identity and you have your new identity, and they are fighting. There is friction being created. Which one will stand in the end? Your old identity or your new identity? It depends on which one you feed. Are you feeding your old identity by accepting those negative thoughts, or are you putting new thoughts in your mind and blocking those negative thoughts so that you can let that new identity win? If that old identity wins, that's where consistency is broken. But you didn't break it. Consistency broke because it threatened who you think you are. That old identity and that new identity. The old identity felt threatened by this new person on the scene. So how do you really stay consistent without forcing yourself to be somebody that you are not? A lot of people think it's just effort. They think effort. They think if I just double down and put in more effort, then we can accomplish this thing. They think overcorrecting themselves will help them to get the results they're looking for. They believe that if they make the system tighter and make it more strict, then they will get the result they're looking for. They will be consistent. But honestly, that just leads to more restriction. That just leads to burnout. And that'll eventually lead you to another reset. Because it's not about the pressure. Consistency is not maintained through pressure. It is maintained through alignment. And clearly, we need to make sure we're aligned, like we talked about with that identity. Pressure is good to start the momentum, but it will not sustain it. So if that's the case, what really does work? What will help me to sustain it? There's 3 things. We've got to set a standard that we can do even on our low days, on our worst days, but make sure it still stretches you. Number 2, keep the system alive, not perfect. And number 3, stay in motion, even if it's small. I was talking to somebody the other day. They asked me how I stay consistent with reading. And I told them when I first started years ago, because they're sitting down, they're trying to read for hours at a time. They say, okay, I got to read an hour. And I'm like, yeah, I get you. It's good to read an hour a day. That's great. However, when I first started out years and years ago, I told myself 5 or 10 minutes. 10 minutes, that's it. Sit down and read for 10 minutes. Because if I told myself sit down and read for an hour, that's already a mental block in my mind. An hour. I only have 16 of them after I sleep 8. So that's a lot of time to put towards reading. But if I tell myself 10 minutes, what's 10 minutes? I can do anything for 5 to 10 minutes. Let me sit down, let me pick up this book, and let me read for my 10 minutes. And guess what? Doing that, I often read a lot longer than 10 minutes. 20 minutes, an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, to be honest. But I would sit down and I would tell myself 10 minutes because that lowered the resistance, that lowered the bar for me. It lowered the entry, right? It lowered the cost of entry. 10 minutes, no problem. I can do that. I don't really have to think about it. But if I say an hour, that's a bit of a struggle. That's a bit of a problem, right? Because I got these other things. And can I find an hour in my schedule to sit down and read? No, but I can find 10 minutes. No problem. So again, by doing that, it helps to stay consistent because consistency is not about intensity. It's about staying engaged and doing it that way. Of course, it helped me to stay engaged.
What if shopping could earn you cash instead of just costing you? You've been stuck in the cycle, tap, swipe, spend, watching your paycheck just disappear. But one day, after you stumbled onto this app called Rakuten, you ask yourself, why am I paying full price when I don't have to? But then you think, maybe it's just another gift. Then one of your friends tell you about this app called Rakuten, who makes them money and gives them cash back and rewards for thousands of stores every time they make a purchase that they were made anyway. You try it once, you discover hidden deals, compare prices, and you start winning. Shopping becomes a strategy. Every tap pays you back, and you still get what you want. You share Rakuten with your friends, watch your income grow, and become more financially confident. Download the Rakuten app today and keep more of your hard-earned money in your pocket.
So some closing points for you to bring this all together. Consistency does not break because you're incapable. It breaks where systems, identity, and emotion collide. This week, notice one area where you tend to fall off. Not to judge it, not to create some negative self-talk, but to understand why it happens. Because once you understand why it happens, then we can break it and move in the right direction to helping us stay consistent. Next week, we're talking about focus, not as a personality trait, but as a skill that you can actually train. Now, if you're listening to this and you know you're stuck, not because you're lazy, but because your mind feels scattered and nothing is sticking, I want to be clear about who I work with. I work with entrepreneurs and help them cut through the noise, make one clear decision, and build a simple execution structure they can actually follow through on. This isn't about motivation. It's about clarity, structure, and accountability. If you're tired of spinning and you want help moving forward with intention, check out Apex Self Mastery below. The link is in the show notes. One final takeaway for you. Consistency isn't about trying harder. It's about staying connected to the process even when motivation fades. Now remember, success is not a destination, it's a spectrum. So keep evolving. See you on the next one.